After detailed detective work, experts now believe this is the only surviving piece of clothing worn by Elizabeth I.
After decades of speculation, historians and experts have finally made a remarkable discovery. The only surviving piece of clothing believed to have been worn by Queen Elizabeth I. This artifact is not just a relic, it is a tangible connection to a ruler whose life and reign have fascinated generations. Elizabeth I, the last monarch of the Tudor dynasty, ruled England for more than 4 decades, leaving an indelible mark on history. Her leadership guided the nation through religious conflict, political unrest, and threats from powerful nations abroad. Despite her achievements, Elizabeth's death in 1603 was shrouded in mystery. For centuries, the world has speculated on the true cause of her passing. Some believed age had finally taken its toll. Others suggested hidden illness or some malady that had gone unnoticed in her court. Recent breakthroughs in DNA analysis and historical research have provided shocking insights into the Queen's life and death. What these findings reveal goes beyond simple curiosity. It forces a reconsideration of her reign and the personal sacrifices behind her legendary image. The Virgin Queen, celebrated for her intellect, strategic skill, and indomitable will, carefully curated every aspect of her public persona. Yet beneath that polished exterior, Elizabeth endured private struggles, illnesses, and a hidden suffering few ever witnessed. These revelations show that the history books, which have often focused on her political genius and public victories, only tell part of the story. Elizabeth's death did not merely mark the end of a life. It symbolized the conclusion of an era. The Tudor dynasty, already battered by familial intrigue and past tragedy, came to its final chapter with her passing. Historians and scientists alike now have the opportunity to uncover not only the final days of the Queen, but also the personal cost of the life she led. By examining her remains, personal artifacts, and contemporary accounts, a portrait emerges of a ruler who was simultaneously powerful and tragically human. The following sections delve into her ascent, the carefully constructed mask of power she employed, the hidden costs of her image, and the final months that reveal a life both extraordinary and deeply fragile. Through this detailed narrative, Elizabeth's story is retold not just as history, but as an intimate exploration of the woman behind the crown. Elizabeth I ascended the throne in 1558 at the age of 25. A time when the very idea of a woman ruling independently was almost unimaginable. England had recently endured the turbulent reign of her half-sister, Mary Tudor, whose governance was marked by religious persecution and political instability. Elizabeth inherited a kingdom weary of conflict and distrustful of a ruler who might appear vulnerable. Foreign powers, including Spain, France, and the Vatican, watched with keen interest, calculating whether a young, unmarried queen could hold England's fragile state together. Even within her own kingdom, doubts abounded. Nobles questioned her legitimacy, her judgment, and her ability to command respect without the guidance or partnership of a husband. Elizabeth quickly realized that survival as queen required more than clever policies or decisive military action. It demanded mastery of perception. She understood that image and reputation were forms of power, potentially as influential as armies or alliances. To navigate this precarious position, Elizabeth crafted what historians have described as her mask of power. Unlike male rulers, who could rely on demonstrations of strength or battlefield prowess, Elizabeth needed to project an aura of untouchability. She needed to signal purity, competence, and timeless authority. From her earliest days as queen, Elizabeth carefully cultivated this persona. Public appearances, attire, and gestures were all calibrated to reinforce the impression of an unassailable monarch. She projected confidence even in the face of uncertainty, signaling to both allies and enemies that she was not only capable but invincible. Elizabeth's strategy was as much psychological as it was political. By controlling how she was perceived, she could neutralize criticism, intimidate adversaries, and strengthen her domestic authority. Every smile, every gesture, every ceremonial act was part of a broader performance designed to assert control over the narrative of her reign. In essence, Elizabeth's rule depended as much on the power of illusion as it did on her intelligence or policy decisions. Her mask was not merely decorative, it was a vital tool for survival in a world that expected women to be subordinate. Central to Elizabeth's carefully constructed image was her use of makeup. Her choice of Venetian sous, a mixture of white lead and vinegar, created a strikingly pale complexion that immediately set her apart. In the 16th century, pale skin was not just fashionable, it was a symbol of nobility, wealth, and power. Those who worked outdoors in the fields were exposed to the sun, their skin tanned and weathered, while the elite remained indoors, protected and pale. Elizabeth's makeup amplified this distinction, presenting her as otherworldly and virtually untouched by the hardships of life. Her reliance on this cosmetic strategy deepened after a bout of smallpox in 1562, which left her face scarred. From that point onward, she used heavier layers of makeup to conceal imperfections. Contemporary reports suggest that by the later years of her reign, her makeup could reach up to an inch thick, giving her face a porcelain-like appearance. This mask extended beyond cosmetics. It encompassed every visual representation of the Queen. Portraits, the primary medium of royal imagery before photography, were strictly controlled. Elizabeth mandated that only flattering images be produced, erasing any depiction that might reveal age or vulnerability. In 1596, she issued the Royal Proclamation on Portraits, instructing artists to follow specific templates such as the Darnley portrait from 1575. This document ordered the destruction of any unapproved depictions, ensuring that her image remained consistent across England and beyond. Even as she aged, portraits continued to show her as eternally youthful, regal, and strong. The combination of makeup, portrait control, and ceremonial display created an almost mythical presence. Elizabeth was not merely a queen. She was an emblem of perpetual authority, yet the mask came with consequences. The very substances that enhanced her appearance carried hidden dangers. Lead-based cosmetics and mercury-containing treatments likely contributed to long-term health complications. These choices, while politically astute, placed a heavy toll on her body. What appeared as flawless beauty in public concealed suffering and vulnerability in private, a duality that few could recognize at the time. Elizabeth's mastery of visual imagery underscored a larger lesson. Power is as much about perception as action. Her ability to manipulate public perception enabled her to maintain control over a skeptical population and wary foreign courts. The mask was not just a superficial adornment, it was a strategic instrument, shaping the narrative of her reign and ensuring that Elizabeth remained untouchable in the eyes of her subjects and adversaries alike. Beneath the mask, Elizabeth's body and mind endured significant strain. Years of lead and mercury exposure caused cumulative health issues. Her skin developed sores, her hair thinned to the point that wigs were necessary, and her internal organs likely suffered from chronic poisoning. Emotionally, the Queen carried the weight of decades-long isolation and grief. Many of her trusted advisors and companions passed away. William Cecil, her chief advisor, died in 1598. Francis Walsingham, her spymaster, had died years prior, and Catherine Howard, a close female confidant, was no longer at her side. These losses, compounded by the tragic death of Robert Devereux, Earl of Essex, whom she once loved, deeply affected Elizabeth. Essex's failed rebellion in 1601 forced Elizabeth to sign his execution warrant, a decision that haunted her until her final days. Other difficult decisions, such as the execution of Mary, Queen of Scots, weighed heavily on her conscience. Historical accounts suggest that Elizabeth may never have fully consented to Mary's death, revealing the human vulnerability behind her composed public demeanor. For decades, the Queen had projected confidence, wit, and authority, yet privately she wrestled with regret, sorrow, and isolation. These emotional burdens compounded her physical decline, leaving her frail, withdrawn, and increasingly reclusive. In the last months of her life, Elizabeth's carefully maintained public image began to crumble. Physically weak, mentally fatigued, and emotionally drained, she withdrew almost entirely from public life. She refused assistance with daily activities, rejected medical treatment, and spent long hours in silence. Painful conditions, including decayed teeth, abscesses, swollen glands, and other symptoms likely linked to prolonged exposure to toxic substances, made even basic tasks unbearable. She developed unusual behaviors, sleeping on cushions or standing rather than lying in a bed, possibly fearing that once she lay down, she would not rise again. Her coronation ring, worn for over 4 decades as a symbol of reign and continuity, became a source of pain as swelling made it cut deeply into her flesh. These final weeks were marked by extreme frailty and isolation. Courtiers, unsure how to act, remained silent as the Queen's suffering continued largely unseen. On March 24, 1603, Elizabeth I passed away quietly at Richmond Palace at the age of 69. No post-mortem examination was allowed, in keeping with her desire to protect the image she had meticulously crafted throughout her life. Her death marked the end of the Tudor dynasty. The news shocked England, and the public mourned deeply. Elizabeth's body was interred at Westminster Abbey, leaving a void that was felt both politically and emotionally. Succession passed smoothly to James VI of Scotland, who became James I of England, uniting the crowns and initiating a new royal chapter. Yet the myths, doubts, and conspiracies surrounding Elizabeth's life and death only intensified in the years that followed, fueled by her silence and the dramatic story of her final days. Modern research has begun to illuminate the hidden aspects of Elizabeth's reign. The same queen who projected eternal strength endured silent suffering, physical decline, and profound emotional burdens. The mask she created, her image of ageless authority, was a double-edged sword. It preserved power, commanded respect, and shaped history, but at great personal cost. Elizabeth I remains a figure of fascination, a woman who mastered perception, strategy, and symbolism while navigating a perilous political landscape. Her life reminds us that power often conceals sacrifice, and the stories behind historical icons are richer and more complex than the legends suggest. By examining both the public and private Elizabeth, we gain a fuller understanding of the Queen, the woman, and the enduring legacy she left behind. After decades of speculation, historians have uncovered what is believed to be the only surviving piece of clothing worn by Queen Elizabeth IV. This remarkable artifact is not merely a relic. It is a direct link to a ruler whose reign shaped the course of English history. Elizabeth I, the last Tudor monarch, ruled for over 40 years, guiding England through turbulent political, religious, and military challenges. Her sudden death in 1603 was cloaked in mystery, raising centuries-old questions. Did she die of age, illness, or some hidden ailment unknown to her court? Modern scientific advancements, including DNA analysis, have begun to answer these questions. The discoveries reveal not only the cause of her death but also hidden aspects of her life, forcing a re-evaluation of the entire Tudor era. Elizabeth's reign is often remembered for its political brilliance and public successes, yet behind the veneer of control lay private suffering and extraordinary personal sacrifice. The Queen carefully cultivated her image, controlling how she was seen, what portraits were approved, and how her subjects perceived her age and strength. These revelations bring a human dimension to the story of a woman whose authority was unmatched, yet whose body silently endured immense strain. Elizabeth became queen in 1558 at just 25 years old. England had been shaken by the tumultuous reign of her half-sister Mary Tudor, whose rule was marked by religious conflict and political instability. Foreign nations, including Spain, France, and Rome, viewed Elizabeth as vulnerable, expecting that a young woman without a husband could not govern effectively. Even within England, nobles questioned her legitimacy and ability to maintain power. Elizabeth quickly understood that survival depended not only on policy but on perception. Unlike male rulers who commanded respect through force or military success, she relied on intellect, diplomacy, and public image. She needed to project strength, purity, and unwavering authority. From her earliest days as queen, Elizabeth crafted what historians now call her mask of power, a symbolic armor that communicated control and invincibility. Elizabeth faced skepticism both at home and abroad. Spain, France, and the Vatican tested her resolve, while English nobles watched her every move for weakness. The Queen realized that her success hinged on cultivating a carefully controlled persona. Public appearances, court rituals, and her interactions with advisors were all calculated to reinforce her authority. She became a master of image management, demonstrating confidence and decisiveness while concealing uncertainty. Her early political strategies combined alliances, intelligence gathering, and subtle displays of power. She maintained a delicate balance between domestic stability and foreign diplomacy, ensuring that England's fragile state remained intact. Every decision was amplified by the need to project strength, creating an aura of untouchable authority that became central to her long reign. Central to Elizabeth's power was her carefully constructed appearance. Venetian Sousse, a mixture of white lead and vinegar, was used to create a strikingly pale complexion, a visible symbol of nobility and social status. Smallpox in 1562 left her face scarred, prompting the Queen to apply heavier layers of makeup, sometimes up to an inch thick, transforming her appearance into a porcelain-like mask. She controlled all visual representations, issuing the 1596 Royal Proclamation on Portraits, mandating that only approved depictions of her youthful, flawless, and strong appearance survive. This control extended beyond cosmetics, ensuring that Elizabeth's image remained inseparable from her authority and reinforcing the illusion of eternal youth and invulnerability. Elizabeth's image came at a significant personal cost. Years of lead-based cosmetics and mercury treatments likely caused severe health issues, including poisoning and chronic illness. Her hair thinned, skin developed sores, and internal health deteriorated. Emotionally, the loss of trusted advisors like William Cecil and Francis Walsingham, along with companions such as Catherine Howard, left her increasingly isolated. The tragic execution of Robert Devereux, Earl of Essex, a man she once deeply cared for, haunted her. Similarly, her role in the death of Mary, Queen of Scots, weighed heavily on her conscience. These personal burdens, combined with physical suffering, underscored the hidden human cost of the public persona she maintained so meticulously. As Elizabeth approached her 70s, her carefully maintained mask began to unravel. She withdrew from public life, refusing food, drink, or medical attention. Painful physical conditions included decayed teeth, abscesses, swollen glands, gray skin, and other ailments linked to long-term exposure to toxic cosmetics. She developed unusual behaviors, including sleeping on cushions or standing for hours, possibly fearing that lying down would mean never rising again. The swelling of her coronation ring into her flesh symbolized the deterioration of her body, even as she refused to acknowledge her frailty. Courtiers, unsure how to act, remained silent while the Queen silently suffered, embodying the paradox of ultimate authority and human vulnerability. On March 24, 1603, Elizabeth I passed away quietly at Richmond Palace at age 69. She had forbidden a post-mortem examination, preserving her image even in death. Her passing marked the end of the Tudor dynasty. England mourned deeply, yet succession passed smoothly to James VI of Scotland, who became James I of England, uniting the crowns and initiating a new royal chapter. Elizabeth's body was interred at Westminster Abbey. Her silence in death, the absence of last words, and the private nature of her final days left room for speculation, myths, and conspiracies that endured for generations. Her carefully curated public image had protected her authority, but at the cost of leaving the truth of her final moments shrouded in mystery. Elizabeth's life remains a study in contrasts. Publicly, she was a powerful, untouchable monarch. Privately, she endured immense suffering and personal loss. The mask of youth, authority, and perfection she created was both a tool for political survival and a source of profound physical and emotional cost. Modern scientific research, DNA studies, and historical analysis now allow a fuller understanding of her health, her suffering, and the sacrifices underlying her reign. Elizabeth's story reminds us that power often conceals struggle, and behind every historical icon lies a human being navigating impossible pressures. Her legacy endures as a testament to resilience, intelligence, and the profound complexity of leadership. Elizabeth was born in 1533, the daughter of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. Her early life was marked by political instability and personal danger. The execution of her mother cast a long shadow over her childhood, teaching her early lessons in survival, discretion, and self-preservation. Despite these challenges, Elizabeth received an extraordinary education, mastering languages, philosophy, history, and the arts. This foundation shaped her intellect and prepared her for the future throne, giving her tools to navigate a world dominated by powerful men and complex court politics. Elizabeth inherited a nation divided by religion. Following the Catholic reign of Mary Tudor, Protestantism had become politically sensitive. Elizabeth navigated this divide carefully, establishing the Elizabethan religious settlement to maintain peace. She used diplomacy, strategic alliances, and political acumen to consolidate her rule. Her understanding of religion as both a personal belief and a political instrument allowed her to strengthen the crown while minimizing unrest. Elizabeth's court was a stage, and she was the central performer. Every ceremony, audience, and festival reinforced her authority. She used elaborate dress, pageantry, and ritual to project power. Courtiers were drawn into her carefully orchestrated world, where behavior, presentation, and loyalty were meticulously observed. Through these performances, she reinforced her public image while keeping potential rivals in check. Despite expectations to marry for political alliances, Elizabeth chose to remain the Virgin Queen. This decision reinforced her independence and control, allowing her to wield power without a husband. Foreign nations found this difficult to navigate. England's rivals could not manipulate her through traditional dynastic marriage. Elizabeth's single status became a political tool, enhancing her mystique while strengthening her authority. Elizabeth's reign faced serious military threats, most famously the Spanish Armada in 1588. Through a combination of intelligence, strategic planning, and personal leadership, England successfully defended itself. Elizabeth's speeches and presence inspired loyalty among her troops and citizens. This victory reinforced her image as a capable and almost mythical monarch, blending political skill with public spectacle. Elizabeth's court was also a center of culture and learning. She patronized literature, theater, and the arts, fostering an era now known as the Elizabethan Golden Age. Writers, poets, and artists thrived under her support, and she used cultural patronage to project sophistication and intelligence. Her influence shaped English identity, intertwining politics, culture, and national pride. Elizabeth's security relied heavily on a network of spies and intelligence agents. Sir Francis Walsingham, her spy master, created an early secret service to protect the Queen from plots, rebellions, and foreign interference. This system allowed Elizabeth to maintain authority and respond decisively to threats, blending strategy with subtlety. Her reliance on intelligence also reveals a side of leadership where careful information management was as important as military might. As Elizabeth aged, she adapted her mask and strategies to maintain influence. Heavy makeup, wigs, and strict portrait control preserved her public image. Even while her body weakened, she manipulated perception to project youth, authority, and vitality. These adaptations reflect the Queen's relentless commitment to power and the lengths she went to protect her legacy. The pressures of absolute rule took a toll on Elizabeth's mind. Isolation, loss, and constant decision-making contributed to anxiety, fatigue, and emotional strain. Historical accounts suggest moments of melancholy and reflection, showing the human vulnerability behind the public figure. Despite this, she maintained composure in public, illustrating her mastery over self-presentation and the art of ruling. Elizabeth relied on 16th-century medicine, much of which was rudimentary and dangerous. Mercury treatments, lead-based makeup, and herbal remedies were common. Chronic illness, smallpox scars, and age-related decline made her final years physically challenging. These medical practices, combined with her refusal to submit fully to doctors, highlight both the limitations of contemporary medicine and her determination to control her body and image. After her death, Elizabeth became a symbol of national identity and female power. Writers, artists, and historians mythologized her